Hi everybody, it's Molly Busby, and this is the Yoga of. Yoga-centered conversation for Western yogis ready to embrace yoga as a way of life. On my spiritual path, the real magic started when I noticed yoga off my mat. I began applying insights from my practice into how I showed up in the world, and suddenly I could see yoga everywhere. Welcome to the Yoga of. Hey everyone, it's Molly. Welcome back to the Yoga of. This is season 4, episode 3, called The Yoga of Politics. So I am just giving a very brief little introduction here. I did not record video for the portion with my special guest today, but I am going to come on after the audio portion to just give my random 2 cents at the end, just because, well, you'll see, but I took a little time to digest the conversation, and I think there's some really important kind of end cap notes to what we talked about. So I'm excited for you to hear this month. Those of you listening in on a podcasting app, this won't make any difference to you with the video, but hopefully you enjoy the episode, and I would love to hear what you think of it. So please reach out either via social media or via email on my website, mollybusby.com. Really would love to hear from you. So without further ado, here is the episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Molly, and I have a special guest with me today who is a little bit apprehensive about doing this, but we're just going to see how it goes. No pressure. We're just talking. We're just having a conversation. Can you tell everybody your name?
My name's Sean. I'm Molly's husband.
You heard it here. Sean Busby on the Yoga of. And we're calling this episode the Yoga of Politics. And it's not a random topic for us because we're not really vocal about politics in terms of our public life and everything. But as of late, there's been a lot going on up here in the Arctic, so we've gotten more involved in the political process than we have in the past. So the Yoga of Politics, just to give you an idea, Sean, I have some thoughts that I've written down, and these are all ways that I think we can apply yoga, meaning the way of applying philosophy to everyday things in life. Like how can we go through this experience of our political chaos up here in the Arctic, and whatever the outcome is, how can we come out of it as better people? Like we've grown through this process. So what's going on up here? What's so chaotic for us?
Well, Congress is using Congressional Review Act to revoke a resource management plan that covers over 13 million acres of this region, mostly all public land. And we use these lands, since they're public lands, under the Bureau of Land Management. They've been in place since they put in the pipeline and the road here. It dictates how the land will be preserved and utilized for American public, as well as industry and everything from recreation, such as hunting, backpacking, you name it, to preservation, to
wildlife management, resource
management.
extraction.
Yeah, so
it basically takes
it's a roadmap.
Yeah, it's a roadmap. And resource management plans are all over the country. And the one that we're talking about up here in particular, which, we can't claim to know anything about other resource management plans because we know just a lot about the one, because we were on the tail end of this 10-year process of revising it. That's when we began our life up here in the Arctic. So having been part of the process and now living here. So anyway, Congress is trying to overturn this resource management plan.
We've been contributing to the process now for half that decade. And, these resource management plans come up for review. They look at, the current state of things is like, is this plan working for this area that it's serving? What things can we change so that it is working for everyone? What can we balance out? So we found one that was balanced out, and it just happened to get approved underneath the Biden administration. And it worked out great.
But you're saying like the process wasn't necessarily politically motivated up here. It had been going on in multiple administrations.
Yes, it was under multiple administrations that it was going through. And then it was approved under this last administration right before Biden left office. And now we're being gaslit, and this current administration is saying that this project or this resource management plan should never have been approved, that we didn't actually have a voice in it.
That people were steamrolled into this plan, I think was the quote from our representative of the great state of Alaska. So essentially, we're going to try to make this quick because we're just going to talk about how we're coping with this, the yoga of politics. So our representative just put forth a measure into the House of Representatives today in Washington, D.C. to overturn this. The Congressional Review Act is all you really need to know is that is an act that's never been used to overturn a resource management plan in history. It's never been used for this. And when they do this, it sets a really scary precedent for not just our resource management plan here, but everybody's, everywhere. And it's a lot of unknown and a lot of chaos.
It's basically a backdoor loophole to go around, and essentially you could use it to basically sell public lands and sell them off to industry. And the thing with this is right now, what could honestly just happen is this current administration could say, hey, we don't believe this resource management plan is fair for everyone involved. So we're just going to go through and redo it.
That's all. Yeah, like the Secretary of Interior right now would likely do whatever the administration wanted and would say, yeah, we can just overturn this. So I want to pause here because what we're talking about. So today, Sean and I actually listened and watched the congressional hearing on, well, it wasn't YouTube, whatever channel it was on. We don't have like actual TV, but we were watching it on our phones.
On congress.live.gov or something.
Yeah, you can watch Congress. Normally, I think people would go on C-SPAN or something. But anyway, so we were watching it. So I thought it was a trippy situation watching people who I've never met before on like the floor of one of the governing bodies of our country, of our nation, discussing like our backyard. And it was just wild to witness it. And we listened to a representative from Colorado give a lot of really amazing points about why Congress should consider and why the House should consider not approving this, because it's never been done before. And there are other ways to get this overturned. So why the Congressional Review Act? Why now? So, Sean, one of the things in the yoga tradition that we talk about is there's this longstanding tradition of debate. And when gurus would meet or debate on philosophical topics, it was this really powerful tradition where they would actually say their piece, they would say their philosophy, they would go back and forth, and one person would yield. And I've read that part of the tradition was also like, it was really, it wasn't that you were just speaking at one another, you really had to understand the other person's point of view. Because if you actually understand another person's point of view, then someone has to yield. So I want to hear your thoughts on this, honestly.
Well, my thoughts are was anyone being paid by any sort of industry or outside entity?
With the gurus?
Yes.
I am not totally sure, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and just say I do not think the gurus were being paid.
Well, I believe that the situation that we are seeing today is that there is payment being made to various elected officials, and they all have different things that they're trying to push through. And so as a person that's just living here, I don't feel represented. I don't feel represented. I know our neighbors don't feel represented. We all feel sidelined and gaslighted by this whole entire process we've been part of. And regardless of what we said, it was just going to be done this way anyways. Again, they could have easily just overturned it, and it is what it is. But since they are trying to use this Congressional Review Act, the only reason they're doing that is so that any future administration that comes in for years from now, 8 years from now, 12 years from now, whatever it may be, they can't overturn it.
Yeah, and it was wild because they actually put them on the spot and they made them answer that question, and they said that. They literally were like, we're doing it this way, and it's never been done. We're doing it this way so that it can never be undone. Because here's the thing, and this is what the representative from Colorado said. He was like, here's the deal. If you do this and you overturn it, then the next time for the next resource management plan, there can never be a similar plan again. That's the scary part. So nothing in the current plan, the way it is, can ever be done a similar way in the future, which is crazy. So, okay. Well, I think what you're getting at, Sean, and what I kind of feel is like in the spirit of debate, when we were watching this, it didn't actually feel like there was an actual debate. Is that right? It was like autotrons reading from their script.
There's one guy that was actually trying to have a legit debate. He was basically pleading to be like, just overturn these lands. Do it the normal process. Do not use this blatant axe to the process and cut out the public. And that's what was used is this blatant axe to cut out the public when this is supposed to be for public lands and a whole entire public process. And so it's like, if you're going to turn it over, then just turn it over, but don't do the lasting damaging effects that are going to have repercussions years and years and ages from now for the future of people that will live here.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy. So the second thing I wanted to bring up, so Sean, I'm not sure if you know this. In yoga, there's kind of like the guidelines for living yoga is one of our ancient texts is called the Yoga Sutras. Have you heard of the Yoga Sutras?
Yes.
Oh, if you couldn't hear that, he nodded. He said yes. So in the Yoga Sutras, there's a sutra. It's Sutra 1.33. And it talks about how we as yogis, and I'm including you here as a yogi, how we as yogis should treat people. And there are 4 categories of people in the world. And I'm gonna just briefly tell you about each one. Patanjali, the author of the Yoga Sutras, he says, to those who are joyous, we should be friendly. To those who are in pain or less fortunate, we should be compassionate. To those who are wise, or he says self-realize, or another way of saying it, to those who embody noble qualities, we should have reverence. And then to the wicked, or other ways of putting this, to those who are addicted to ignorance, we can have indifference. One of the other authors that I love, her name is Nischala Joy Devi. She's one of the women in yoga that I really look up to. She puts it like this because really we're talking about the last category when we talk here, to the wicked. So she says we should have equanimity to those whose actions oppose our values. Equanimity is like being the eye of the storm. Like there's all the chaos going around you and you're just like that still center. Maybe we would consider our representative Nick Begich the 4th category. He opposes our values, right?
Yeah, he opposes our values.
Yeah, he opposes our values. And unfortunately for us in Alaska, we have one representative in Congress just because we're a big state with not a lot of people. So to be indifferent or like to have equanimity about this, like how do you do that when you still want to take action and fight for the place that you live?
I think you just need to stand for what you believe in and at least know that you contributed to the process the best that you could, the best that you were able to. And no doubt, I believe that this will all come back around, and there will be major regrets from the people that put this forward.
Yeah, like one of the things I thought about today is like how, even though, they voted and then like it passed and we were like, oh, all that work, I wrote an op-ed, we
passed by a few votes, so I have hope that we can still fight it in the Senate, and that some of the other members voted against their party line, and I feel that we may be able to get more members to vote against their party line because they see that this is a horrible tool to be used against people that live here and that survive off this land.
Yeah, and I think that's the great point is like there's how lucky are we to be able to engage in the democratic process, first of all. Whatever you have to say about politics in the United States of America, we have a democratic process that our forefathers created and decided upon, and it's been going on for, since we've been a country, and like how cool that we can participate. Because there are always multiple sides to any issue, and I think we're focused a lot in the West about winning. We can't all be on the winning side, but we're participating. And so I think what you're saying is like you have equanimity regarding the representative or any representatives of government that don't agree with your values, but yet you still speak your mind and say your piece. And with that, you can sleep at night. Right? Can you sleep at night? Does this keep you up?
I'll get there.
Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about is that in yoga, and I think a lot of great leaders say this too, is always be open to having your mind changed. I think when you engage in this process, how do you do your research? And how do you weight different sources of information? Because those who know you, those who know Sean will laugh because he really is, we sometimes call him like the Internet Explorer because his research skills are next level. So how do you gather information on stuff like this, and how do you weight this or that?
I mean, a lot of it's you can follow the money with a lot of it. So if you're all of a sudden in an area that's been known as the crown jewel of public lands is all of a sudden now this whole new mining fiasco, and we need to get rid of these lands all of a sudden for an international company, and we're going to build them a road, but no one from the public's going to be allowed to use it, and this road's going to cross a national park, which is a roadless national park that has no roads, and you're still not going to be able to use it. I mean, you watch your local politicians, you watch your governor and the words that come out of their mouth, and you see them talking about the state you live in. So for us, it's Alaska. They're still talking like we're a territory. We're long past the territory days. There's people that have created their own businesses. I mean, yeah, oil and gas is the number one industry in Alaska, but number 2 and 3 is fishing and tourism. It's not all just extraction. There's people that have built lives here in other industries. And the oil and gas, yeah, we use it. Mining, yeah, we use it. So we're not anti-development, but the situation is not a public process that's going through. The public has stated what they believe about these areas, and it's been shut down for years upon years and through various resource management plans since the late 1980s. So now all of a sudden the drastic shift, it's like it's a shell shock shift, and the fact of how they're doing it is just not a natural way to do it. They're doing it as a way to sabotage it for future generations. So to me, that just shows that you're trying to hide something. You're not open to compromise. And if you're not open to compromise, then what's the point of going through this process? It's them that shut themselves out from talking with us.
So what is the point of going through the process?
To realize how corrupt people are.
Womp womp.
I'm not going to give you a yogi answer.
That is one thing. That's actually maybe where I'll close things out. So when I was talking to Sean about this, he's like, I'm not going to end this on a high note because truly, I mean, especially after listening to that today, we're not feeling on any sort of high note, like it's a sense of defeat. It's a sense of like my words, everything that we did, the op-ed that I wrote for ADN, all the interviews that we've been doing and will continue to do, right? It feels like none of it was worth it. But like you said, Sean, there was one vote, right? There was one Republican that did not vote for it. Is that right?
Correct.
So and we don't know this representative from Pennsylvania,
but I'm sure as hell going to call him.
Yeah, we are sure as hell going to call that representative and thank them for not voting for this. And that's the thing, like every little action that you take, and this is what we talk about with yoga and with Kriya, is like every action you take adds up to the greater actions and the greater events that go on in the universe. And so every little thing that you do can be a part of this process. And although we're not ending on a high note, I do hope that
we're going to hit it just as hard.
Yeah. It now goes to the Senate and we're going to hit it just as hard. And if you can hear the tap dancing here in the background, this is Darla. She's just walking around the kitchen here saying, let me outside. So life goes on. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you've learned a little something about the Central Yukon Resource Management Plan and the fight that we have ahead of us here and the fact that, it is truly all yoga. Okay, so that was just, like I said, a little bit of an impromptu but very meaningful conversation that I really wanted to have with Sean because it was right at a time when things were really fresh. And as I'm recording this to you right now, things are still very fresh after the vote on the House floor in Washington, D.C. And so as I've been marinating about our conversation for the last few days, there's just a couple things that keep bubbling up in my head that I think I would be remiss if I did not say. Because this conversation, yes, I think it's important to spread the word about what we're up against because, the vote in the Senate will be coming up at some point in the future. And it's important to spread the word, but with all things, it's important to learn from this experience. And, we've been talking in the last day or two about this idea of like, well, why even try? Why even try? There's so many people that we keep texting back and forth or talking with people in, environmental groups and our friends and people in Fairbanks and people on social media. It's like, why even try? Because it seems like it's just such a shoo-in, right? So going into the Senate, there's both of our senators here in Alaska are supporting overturning the Central Yukon Resource Management Plan, both of them. And so it seems like a lost cause. I've heard so many people say this. And so why even try? Why don't we just roll over and just let them overturn it? So I think what I keep coming back to is that actions matter. And you could that it's an action to sit back and say, you know what? My voice doesn't matter. Writing another op-ed or talking to a journalist or reaching out to contacts that we have at newspapers or, in different places, it's not worth it. It's never going to work. But what I'm learning and what I know to be true is that we never know how the ripples are going to flow, right? Like when you drop a pebble into a lake, wherever you are, say you're in a canoe in the middle of the lake, you drop a pebble into the water and you see the ripples going out. You never see the end of those ripples, especially if the pebble is like a big boulder, right? Especially if you're in a big lake. You can't see the shoreline. You don't know what the wave sounds like when it gets to the shore. You don't know who's standing there, who's observing it. You don't know what it crashes into. You don't know that it hits another wave from another pebble dropped by another person. And so what it comes down to is it is about one vote, the vote in the Senate and then the things that have to happen in our government for something like this to be put into law. But it's about taking action and understanding that we're never going to know how this is going to fully shake out, because even if the Central Yukon Resource Management Plan gets overturned, there are actions that we will be taking in the coming days, weeks, months, perhaps, that perhaps we meet new people. Perhaps we say something on a podcast that connects someone to something for some other resource management plan, right? There's what I would call infinite possibilities for these ripples to happen. And so when we ask the question, why try? Why even try if it seems like it's a shoo-in? I would just say, like, why not? Why not? And I think the second point that I'll make kind of goes with this in terms of capacity. We all have a different capacity for getting involved. And I think, fortunately, right now, Sean and I are in a position where I think we both feel really good about getting involved. And well, we don't feel really good about all the rain going on in the Brooks Range right now, but because of that, we haven't been building. We haven't been doing these outside activities that we normally would be doing. You know, we're taking walks, we're tending to the dogs, but it's a lot of rain. So we've actually had quite a bit of time on our hands to write, to communicate, to stand up and do these things that we've been doing. And I think we're also committed to taking some time in the evenings, staying up a little late this night or that night, just to get things done, to write things down, to lend our voice. That capacity is something that we have. But what I'm also learning, it's so interesting because we've had tons of friends that have worked for different advocacy groups in all parts of just the world and nonprofits and things like that. And, you know, I've heard friends say before, like, just how exhausted they are for fighting for these issues. And I don't think I actually really ever understood. But I'm starting to understand the fatigue that people talk about. And I mean, we're talking like, we've been at this for like relatively a teeny tiny shred of time compared to what a lot of people devote, you know, their lives to advocacy for environmental purposes and otherwise. So I can see how people would get really exhausted. So I think the second part of this is capacity. Do you have the capacity to act, right? Like, are you turning away from the responsibilities? Like, if this was keeping us from properly caring for our dogs, right? We don't have kids, we have lots of dogs. But if it was keeping us from that, then I would say, yeah, no. Taking action and being an advocate in this way would not be an action that is dharmic or purposeful in nature, right? This would be an action that would actually be harmful to the responsibilities that we've taken on in our lives. And so I think as long as we have the capacity, and then whoever you are, whatever you're advocating for, not forgetting to rest. Rest is important, and things like this can be exhausting, and it can feel like you just need to go. But if we don't rest, if we don't take care of ourselves, and then we burn out or we get sick or we can't show up, then no one benefits from our voice. Then no one benefits from our thoughts. And I think in terms of advocacy, that's really important for us to have a clear head and a clear mind and a clear voice when we're speaking up on behalf of something that's bigger than ourselves. So those are my closing thoughts. I really hope you enjoyed this. And thank you to my amazing husband, who's probably in the other room listening to me talk to you. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, please tell me what you thought. Email me, find my handle, Molly of the North, on Instagram, or Yoga with Molly Busby on Instagram, my website, mollybusby.com. Check out what I'm up to. Would love to practice with you, hear from you, connect with you. So thanks for listening. Hey everyone, just a quick reminder that in addition to hosting a podcast every few years or so, I also run online courses and online yoga teacher trainings, as well as in-person yoga teacher trainings, yoga retreats, and dog mushing retreats, and so much more at Arctic Hive, the Wilderness Lodge and Retreat Center my husband and I built above the Arctic Circle of Alaska. And so I would love to invite you to join me either online in a course, whether you want to study the goddesses, study astrology, study Kriya Yoga, study to become a yoga teacher, whether you care or not about actually teaching yoga. I would love for you to find more about these options on my website, mollybusby.com. Or if you're thinking, this lady is just wild enough that I want to go see what her home is all about. I would love to invite you to Arctic Hive and to come to Alaska and to join in one of our retreats, whether you want to come just to relax, see the northern lights, do yoga, see a part of the world that so few people get to see, or maybe you want to come to learn how to dog mush, to drive your own team of Alaskan Huskies through the Arctic wilderness, or one of the other offerings that we have throughout the year during the winter solstice or during our fall hiking retreat. With so many offerings, I would love to host you, and so would my husband, Sean. So find more about our retreats and trainings at arctichive.com. I hope to hear from you soon. If you have any questions, reach out to me via email at Mollie, MOLLIE, at yogahivestudios.com. Looking forward to hearing from you.